Much needed off day for the Brewers on Monday, maybe more so for the fans. After a 2-4 homestand, go on the road for 6 games. San Francisco tonight, Arizona over the weekend. We'll get to all that. Our special guest, David Gasper from Reviewing the Brew, is coming up next.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good to have you on here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day, talking Brewers baseball with you Monday through Friday. We'll talk to you about the podcast. We're going to get it a little bit later on here in the show. Longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin and proud host of Locked On Brewers. Again, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, as we are your daily dose for Brewers news. David Gasper, Reviewing the Brew, is with us as well. And he is one heck of a source himself for Brewers news. Dave, do I got that information right? Dave Gasper, 24?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's
all
it.
Right. Not many Dave Gaspers in the world, are there?
No, not too many. Just the one and only here, as far as I know.
Hey, appreciate it as always. Always enjoy your work, and you cover the team as well. Hey, Dave, this 2-4 stretch that the Brewers are on, we've been down this road. July wasn't a great month, a losing month. Should we be concerned that, oh boy, we're not seeing this team crumble in front of our eyes here in September, are we?
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about it just yet. I know we certainly as Brewers fans, we've been down that road, several times. And it kind of feels like deja vu a little bit all over again. But still, I'm not too worried about this team just yet. There's still plenty of time. There's still a lot of good things going on. With them. Willie Adames has been playing incredibly well. He's in the final year of arbitration. Jackson Churio also has been phenomenal throughout the second half, really since the beginning of June. So some guys are definitely cold offensively during that homestand. It wasn't the greatest stretch, but there's still 3 weeks left in the season here. There's still plenty of time for these bats to get going. And really, I mean, for professionals like this, it takes one swing to get themselves back on track. And if a couple of these guys just have those swings and get themselves going, they're going to be just fine. So I'm not too worried about this group right now at all.
Now, Dave, I thought that was going to be Saturday night when they hit the first innings home runs, the 2 home runs, and Adames at number 30. I thought, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst offensive performances of the season.
Yeah. And then following that up with, just 3 hits, on Sunday and nothing after the second inning is certainly rough. But it's just, you kind of have those moments where it's like, okay, like things are going, like you had the home runs in the first game against the Cardinals, and it's like, okay, well, here we go. A couple of big hits, Jackson Churio and Willie Adames and Hoskins and all these guys. And and then the next 2 days, the offense, just kind of stinks it up. And it's kind of been like that. And it's been a bit of a rough stretch there, but that you're going to have those kinds of performances in the course of a long season. And perhaps going on the road here might change things up for them. Playing a little bit stronger competition may get their energy up a little bit as well, and get things rolling.
They got to play well. The old saying is you got to play well when it counts the most in October. In this case, with the Brewers going through a slump, I think somebody on the positive side might say, well, let him get all this bad stuff out of the way, as long as it doesn't happen in October.
Right. Yeah. Better to have it now than to have it in October. Because you don't want to have it then, because you're running out of time there, and you really need it to be going. So, as long as really, during that final week of the regular season when they're playing the Pirates and playing the Mets, as long as, things are rolling then and these guys are feeling confident and feeling good at the plate, I think that's going to be the most important sign and the most important indicator when it comes to playoff success. All this time, before the postseason, obviously it's great to have that kind of success and to have guys hitting well and feeling confident. But I think it's really most important that final week or so before the end of the regular season, because that's what's going to carry you into October, and carrying it into those games. Because I mean, you can have the hot stretches all you want in June and July, but if you're not feeling good as you're heading into the playoffs, it's going to be really tough for you to start feeling good when you're in the playoffs.
Nobody expected this team to be 20 some odd games over the 500 mark.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the biggest surprise to you on this team that you didn't expect?
I think it's definitely Tobias Myers. I think he's been the biggest surprise for me, because when you looked at this rotation coming into the year, and all the different guys that they kind of had as options there, whether it be Junis and Ross and, Aaron Ashby and Robert Gasser and Carlos Rodriguez, of all the guys you could have given me to pick that would break out and just be an absolute stud in this rotation, I would have gone through the list of literally everyone else before I got to Tobias Myers. Never would have thought about it in a million years. He had a 5-something ERA at AA last year, just kind of as a non-roster invite, one of the first cuts out of spring training. And he ends up becoming one of the most valuable pieces of the starting rotation. He's been absolutely the biggest surprise, the biggest out of nowhere addition with so much value. And just being able to take the ball every single fifth day, and not just eat up a couple of innings. I mean, he's had a couple of 8-inning shutout performances. Like he's had some really incredible starts. He puts Brewers in a great chance to win every single time he heads out there. The Brewers have really found something here with Tobias Myers, and I think that is definitely the biggest surprise and one of the biggest reasons for this team's success this year. Because when they had all those injuries, happen to the rotation, losing Wade Miley early on, losing Robert Gasser after just 5 starts, Carlos Rodriguez really not being ready for the major league level, they were really struggling to find guys to fill innings there in their rotation for a while. And Tobias Myers really is what kept them afloat in that stretch. And now he's just turned into such a valuable piece for this team. He's absolutely the biggest surprise and a massive reason for their success.
When they brought him up, I just thought, he'll make a couple of spot starts. They'll send him back down. But then he pitched so well, you could send him back down. He was here to stay.
Yeah. He's absolutely earned it. I mean, he was up and down. He was riding the shuttle there a couple of times there early on in the season. He was optioned 3 or 4 times, I think. And then finally he had a couple good starts and it really stuck. And the Brewers okay, well, you keep pitching well, we're going to give you another start, and we'll give you another start. And he just continued to pitch well in all of them. And now he's earned a spot. And, frankly, could you consider him for a Game 1 postseason start? I mean, I think you could. Freddie Peralta, kind of struggling his last couple of times there. Colin Ray, also, scuffling a little bit recently. Maybe you legitimately could make a case for Tobias Myers to be your postseason Game 1 starter.
But there's no way Murphy's going to go with anybody but Freddie as his number one.
Yeah, guy. Probably not.
Yeah, although because he took Freddie out of the game the other night. He wasn't too happy about that. But
no.
He's coming back. Freddie's this guy. He's going to come back with Freddie in Game 1.
Oh yeah, probably. But still, the fact that you can, make that kind of case for someone else, that Peralta has kind of scuffled a little bit to that point, but really just that Myers has dominated that much. I think that it just speaks so much to what Myers has done. And yeah, it's likely going to be Freddie Peralta, but still, it is just, really incredible to see how this rotation has shaken out after all these injuries and all these issues that have popped up with it all year. Then obviously you fill in with Savali and Montas, and those guys have done pretty well here. So, it just puts them in a much better spot with that group. But I mean, Myers, legitimately being that kind of an option, it just speaks so much to the work that Chris Hook has done, and the Brewers coaching staff has done with Myers and pitching development. And just the strength that they have in that group.
Health is the key. Who might be left off the playoff roster? We'll ask David about that coming up next. We'll take a quick break here. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. This show is brought to you in part by Gametime. Gametime, where you can select where you want to go. You just got to find out where you want to sit, go to that section, and it is there for you. And you look at it and you say, well, you know what, maybe I want to go sit down in the lower, in the first couple of seats at AmFam Field. You punch it in, you'll see the price and all that, and you'll get a view from the panoramic view from where you want to sit. My favorite spot, I love the club section. You want to sit in the club section, find a seat. You'll see all the super deals right there. Seat views before you buy, the super deal. All the deals are right there, all in pricing, so you're not going to get any surprises at the checkout line. The seat views, the lowest price guaranteed, and the Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. So what you need to do, download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off your first purchase. You buy $70 worth of tickets. Maybe you're going to the Phillies and Brewers next week when they come home on Monday. Well, you get $20 off. Terms apply. But again, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB, $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? Gametime. I use it to get all my seats at AmFam Field. NBA season coming up as well. They have plenty of concert tickets as well. Go to Gametime and get your seats. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. David Gasper joining us from Reviewing the Brew. David, let's talk about down the stretch here, first of all. Health is obviously the number one key. If you find out that you're not going to get one of those top two seeds, and right now the Phillies won again, and so the Brewers are 3.5 behind them overall, 3 out in the loss column. If you can't catch either one of those teams, you start resting players?
Yeah, I could see them doing that, a little bit depending on which guys that it is. But I think with Murphy, his mentality of trying to win tonight, every single night, and trying to keep the foot on the gas. I mean, he's been here the last couple of years where, they've won the division by quite a bit. And then they kind of take their foot off of the gas a little bit. And then when they get to the postseason, they're trying to put the foot back on the gas, and they're having a tough time doing it. So I think with Murphy, he's going to be keeping the foot on the gas pedal with this group. So you might see maybe a little bit of rest. You might see maybe the bullpen management being a little bit different. How he manages the pitching staff. But I think in large part, a lot of those position players, they're still going to be there every single day, making sure that they're getting their at-bats in and they're feeling good at the plate. Because if they're feeling good, during that last week, you don't want to take them off the field. You want them to kind of keep doing that. And if they're not feeling good at the plate, you want them to get those at-bats so that they can hopefully start feeling good by the time you get into October. So I don't think there's going to be as much rest when it comes to, those position players. Starting pitchers, maybe he'll, cut them an inning shorter than usual. But, I think in large part, the regular guys are going to be out there.
Brewers 3 out in the loss column behind Philadelphia. They got the 3-game set with those guys coming up next week at AmFam Field, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I said on yesterday's podcast, Dave, that this road trip, the 6-game road trip, the Brewers got to go 4-2 if they have any shot at one of those top 2 seeds.
Yeah, they cannot afford another 2-4 stretch over a trip there. They really can't if they're going to get themselves going. And the Giants, I think there's a really good opportunity for them there to get a couple of wins. But yeah, you definitely need some series wins. You're going to want to hold off Arizona there because Arizona's making a really, really hard charge for a postseason spot. So they're going to be there. And those are very important games for them. So in order for the Brewers to feel confident that they can take on these kinds of, playoff caliber teams, they're going to need to win on this road trip. And yeah, it's going to be very important to keep pace with the Phillies, with the Dodgers, because they've talked about it too, how much they want that 2 seed, how much they want that bye into the NLDS. And, if they're going to get it, yeah, they have to be within striking distance heading into that Phillies series.
I was just looking at the schedule last night on the air here, and they play the Mets the final 3 games of the season. They open the season in New York. It's an uncommon opponent because they're in the National League East. But theoretically, the Brewers could play 3 against the Mets to finish off the regular season, and the Mets may have something to play for there. And then the Mets could stay in town for another potential 3-game series in a playoff series. They could play 6 in a row against the Mets.
Yeah, they could all there at American Family Field, and oh my God, I cannot wait for the national media to love those storylines with David Stearns facing his old club.
Sure.
You know, Major League Baseball set it up that way with the schedule. You know, facing the Mets first series of the season, last series of the season, just hoping for these kinds of storylines because they knew Stearns was going over there, and they were thinking Counsell was going to go over there too and follow him. And that would have made it even more juicy coming down the stretch. But it appears Craig Counsell's Cubs aren't going to be coming that close to making that postseason berth, which is such a shame, Chuck. Just such a shame.
It is. Gosh, I was pulling for the Cubs. I really thought he was going to do it, but I don't know. I'm telling you, just watching him in Chicago this year, Dave, and we saw it here in Milwaukee, but you don't realize this as much as then when he goes to manage another team. Sometimes what we saw from the Brewers last Sunday in that lifeless game, his teams are like that all the time in Chicago. And there was more of that here. He's got the innate ability just to suck the life out of his team for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but it is.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And Murph has this ability to inject life into this team, you know, no matter what it is, no matter what's going on. You know, Murph has this way to make it lighthearted and to make, you know, guys crack a smile, whatever it is. And just kind of say something that's just like, wait, what? What did he say? You know, he's just got that ability, and it's a tale of two completely different personalities there. And I think it certainly worked for this Brewers team. And that kind of lifeless, you know, seeming approach there. It doesn't really work as much when you're not in first place and you're not winning as much as you're used to.
Now, saw them Friday and Saturday against the Yankees, and they just look bad. You think that Atanasio, Dave, doesn't say to himself, dodge that bullet of $40 million.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, some of these teams, they're not going to be paying managers that much. It's like, things don't seem to be going that well. So are they really worth paying that much? Who knows?
I don't think a manager's really I mean, Murphy's doing a heck of a job, but
yeah.
I mean, are these guys, there's a few guys in our history, La Russa, I think, is one of them, difference makers as a manager. But I mean, it turns out Murphy was the right guy. Now, is he going to be here long-term as the manager? Is Weeks going to eventually move in? Who knows what that plan is? But I think Murphy is, without question, manager of the year. Dave Gasper joining us here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. We come back. We'll talk more. I want to ask him about Rhys Hoskins. What do you think about Rhys Hoskins if Rhys is going to return next year? Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. And, of course, coming up on Locked On Brewers, tomorrow we'll get back at it, the Brewers and Giants, 8:45 with that first pitch. We'll be right here talking Brewers baseball after the game with you on Locked On Brewers. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book for a reason. Well, they got everything like live lines and everything you need to take care of your NFL Sunday, college football Saturday, and all things MLB Monday through Sunday. But they got something a little different for you right now. A little special. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, get a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So then with YouTube TV, you got the base plan. You'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game out of market if you decide to keep it. All you need is that Google account and a fresh form of payment, and you can cancel it anytime. But take advantage. Go to FanDuel right now. Bet that $5 and a 3-week free trial of the NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to FanDuel now. Check out the props. Check out the ads. Or check out the odds, the live lines as well. San Francisco 49ers, the live line. I was all over that live line as the Niners continue to build on their lead over the Jets. And we'll see how that one turned out as we tape this late night on a Monday. But FanDuel's the #1 sports book in America, and it is the official sports book of MLB. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Our guest today, David Gasper, here on the off day for the Brewers and Giants for 3, and then on the road against Arizona for 3 more. Rhys Hoskins been a disappointment, Dave?
I think a little bit. Yeah, he's been so. I mean, he's providing the power sort of that they were expecting, but the rest of it, getting on base and kind of hitting a decent amount. I mean, he's expected more, hit around 240, 250, and he's around like what, 210 or something right about now, 200.
I checked, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely been a little bit disappointing for Rhys Hoskins, but it's also important to keep in mind that this is his first year back from the ACL tear, and usually it's the second year back that guys generally have their big seasons coming back from it. And that's what's going to make his decision all the more interesting, because he does have an opt-out after this year. He could re-enter the market, but he's been largely a replacement level player this year. So it may not be the best time for him to re-enter that market. And I think he should know, those, second year post ACL surgery, breakout type of seasons. And Milwaukee is a great place for him to have that kind of breakout and reestablish his value. He hasn't been able to fully do that this year, but I think that decision is so interesting, because he was probably originally planning on opting out after this year, but he does really seem to enjoy the city. He really seems to enjoy, being with Milwaukee. And he knows this is a really good place for him. So I think there's a chance that he opts in for next year and comes back and hopefully has a better performance next year. But it has been largely disappointing from what the expectations were for Rhys Hoskins. I think for his expectations for himself, because he's used to a higher standard of production, and he just hasn't quite hit it this year.
Maybe he does so in the postseason and becomes Mr.
Maybe.
October. And turns into
he does have a knack for those game-changing home runs, as Murphy tends to point out quite a bit. A lot of his homers have been, late in games or game-changing type homers. So yeah, if he can come up big in the postseason, he has a ton of experience in the playoffs over there with Philadelphia. If he can come up big with a couple of homers there, that is going to be massive in terms of the thoughts of Hoskins 2024 as a Brewer, and just turning things around for him.
I remember Doug Melvin when K-Rod had an opt-in for $17 million. I think in 2012 we had him out. We were doing a toy drive, and he was out there talking with us. And he kind of jokingly said, "Boy, we're going to need another charity drive if he opts in for $17 million." Turns out they got him at a cheaper price, but. Do you kind of think that the Brewers hope that he does or does not opt in on that $18 million for next year? Because he's got the option.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost thinking that they hope that he does, because I mean, Pat Murphy loves the leadership that he brings. I mean, he's one of the pillars of this team. The leadership and obviously the production that he can bring. But I mean, also, Tyler Black, who's kind of supposed to be the future over there at first base, hasn't really shown that much this year. He's come up for a couple of stints, hasn't really been able to gain a foothold. And now he's really kind of struggling down in AAA as well. Brock Wilken is still a little bit away, and he could be at third base. And, you got a couple other first base options down there, Mike Bovee, but he's probably also another year away. So I think with first base, especially since we're not getting much from Jake Bauers, I think they might almost want him to come back, just for, the leadership, but also it solves their first base problem, so that they don't have to go out into the market once again and try and find somebody else for first base. Because, if he leaves, they're going to have to. They're going to have to find someone to fill that spot, because they're not going to be able to just pencil in Tyler Black and Wes Clark or whoever's there at AAA. They're going to end up having to go out and get someone else for that position. But if Hoskins stays, then they don't really need to go out and get someone else for that position. They can just leave it be and focus on filling the void that will be left when Willy Adames signs elsewhere.
Yeah, and we got a third baseman, a third base spot, because Ortiz likely slides over.
Yeah. Or second base if Turang wins out.
Which way do you think they'll go on that one? Because I get asked that Ortiz or Turang going to get moved there.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough question, because I mean, you could you could put either of those guys there, and you'd have Gold Glove caliber defense. So that may just end up being a spring training camp battle, and just kind of whoever performs better defensively ends up getting the spot. But yeah, I mean, I would. Me personally, I would lean towards Terang just because he's the first round pick. He's been here the whole time, and a little bit more established as a big leaguer. Defensively, this is his second year. This is Ortiz's first year. So I would maybe lean towards that experience with Terang, but Ortiz has a really good glove too. So I mean, you can't go wrong either way. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to end up being a camp battle next year in terms of who actually wins that starting job. And you do have some third base prospects coming up the line too, with Wilkin and Bovee, and you could put Tyler Black over there, but you have some guys there. What do you really have at second base coming up through the pipeline? Not much.
David, before I let you go, you do a deep dive into the minor league system. You cover it, follow it. Can you give us an overview? Is it still as good a shape as we like to think it is?
Yeah, it's still in pretty good shape. Obviously with Churio graduating, it loses some of that star luster that it has. And also too with Jefferson Caro, the Brewers' top prospect, in my opinion, being out for the entire season with shoulder surgery, and you really kind of don't know what he's going to come back to as defensively. So it doesn't have quite as much luster as it used to. Tyler Black's struggles, Jacob Mizrowski moving to the bullpen. It's definitely still a very deep farm system. There's still a ton of talent. There's maybe not as much, at least proven blue chip talent as there was before when Churio was in there, and Mitchell and Frelick and Terang and all those guys that have come up. But there's still some really good talent, some really emerging talent too. Cooper Pratt, one of those guys that's popped up now on top 100 lists. Eric Patanti could be moving up there as well pretty soon. Ferry Rodriguez, another kind of young international star that seems to be coming up. So they've got some really good talent down there. A lot of it in the lower levels that could be really good, really strong prospects, but they're still so far away and they have such little track record. It's hard to truly know. It's hard to consider them top 100 prospects or top 5 prospects in the system until they have more of that track record on them.
Hey, Dave, thanks a lot. Great information. Taking some time off on your night off from Brewers baseball with the night off on Monday night.
Yeah, my night off watching Monday Night Football and watching Aaron Rodgers and the Jets not being able to do that much in typical Jets fashion. But hey, at least he made it more than 4 plays. So that's the important part.
He did. He's getting crushed, though. All right. Hey, Dave, we'll see you at the ballpark next week.
See you, Chuck.
David Gasper from Reviewing the Brew. Good stuff from him. This is Chuck Freeman. Again, get our podcast on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. We are there covering Brewers baseball with you. It's all free. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode. Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Have yourself a great Tuesday.